So Reg, I'll just get you to begin with your name and how you came to be in the city of Stirling. Yep.
My name's Reg Cookson. Shifted into the city of Stirling, into Helland Way. In those days was Balga, back in April '63. We bought the house through the Housing Commission, as most others did in the district. And in those days, you paid £3,000 for your house and land complete. And you didn't get any driveways, garages or fancies, but they were adequate and good houses. And that house is still standing today.
Mm-hmm. And when you say you didn't get any fancies, can you describe what the house looked like and what the area looked like, the street?
Well, the first time we came up there, it was a limestone track, and the foundations were being put in. Now, the foundations in those days were limestone blocks, and that was as much as was there when we first saw the block and the house size. And then we slowly saw it established into a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. The laundry was in the back veranda and the toilet was on the back veranda, as it was in those days.
Nice and cold when you had to go in the middle of the night.
And of course we had a chip heater for hot water, which was highly efficient. You know what I mean? When you come from a house that doesn't have any hot water, and you had to boil the kettle and the copper for a bath, a chip heater was wonderful.
Luxury.
Luxury, absolutely. You know, they were well-built houses for those days. Mm-hmm. Very well built.
And then did everyone start to put driveways in and do up the front gardens?
The first thing that people did was they got in a chap named, just gone straight out of my head, from Wanneroo, and he used to rotary hoe the yards and get them all cleaned up from rubbish and what have you. Samson Agra, that's right. Mm-hmm. And then once that was done, it was a matter of raking up and cleaning up and burning the rubbish, and then borrowing and stealing runners of buffalo. And we got the gardens in. And in our street especially, another 2 neighbours and I had a bit of a competition to see who could get the best garden first.
Nothing's changed about
Nothing's changed. I didn't win. It didn't matter.
Yeah, what were your neighbours like? Do you remember your neighbours?
Tremendous. Yes, I remember them well. One of the neighbours was a lad who'd been in Bindoon Boys' Town, and he was one of the lads that came out during the war as a refugee. And after, I believe, 10 years of in the house, he caught up with his original family in England and went back to England and met them. And it was a wonderful reunion. And all of the neighbours seemed to get together well, and it was great. Christmas time, we'd have a street party, and usually that would go on till all hours. New Year's Eve it would go all night, and the first thing next morning we'd go to the beach for a swim.
Oh, beautiful.
So it was a tremendous little community in those days.
Did it feel like it was quite removed from Perth City?
It did. But of course the big thing was we were all of an age. Everyone was around about the same age, young families. You drove a second-hand car that just got you down the road and back. You know, you just couldn't afford anything more than that. So we were all of a same era, and our money was likewise. There was no rich ones in the street and no poor ones. They were all pretty reasonable.
Did the kids get up to a lot of mischief?
Naturally. Don't kids do that everywhere?
But when you're close to the bushland, sometimes you can get up to a bit of extra mischief.
No, we didn't have any problem in the bushlands with the kids. They were good. They were good. I mean, they play in the bush near the end of the road and just across Arcana Road. But we didn't have any problem with them at all.
Make cubby houses and things
Yeah,
like
they
that.
just made little cubby houses, and they'd had their gang sections, and as kids do, you know, they're quite inventive in those days, because who had television? You know, you just couldn't afford television, and the few that did have it, well, that was fair enough. But the kids were out playing anyway, because it was more fun to get outside, you know, and away from mum and dad. So it was good. It was a good community.
No television, no internet.
Well, we didn't have any. We didn't have television. We naturally didn't have internet. God, our internet was a note written on a piece of paper. That was it. No, there was no, and I mean even telephone. We did eventually get one on, but beginning with, no, you had to race down the street to the local phone box with your tuppence or whatever it was to put in the machine.
Yeah.
No, it was altogether. It was a great community spirit in the, and I mean it stayed like that for years, and slowly different ones sold and moved away, and others came in. The other thing we had across the road from us was an Air Force house. It was owned by the Air Force, and different people from the Air Force would live in it, and they just mixed in with everybody else the same, as if they were full-time tenants. But as everybody was in the same boat, you know, they were all paying their houses off. It was everything equal.
Yeah.
Everything equal.
And did you work in the area, or would you have to leave to go out to work somewhere?
I worked in West Perth at a place called Mallock Brothers, and I was a local rep. And I used to do travelling out through Wanneroo. In fact, where some of the properties are now up in the top end of Balga, that used to be a vineyard. And I used to call there and sell them fencing wire and tractors and whatever have you. And I did the same all out through Wanneroo. And in those days, the end of the area was Arcana Road. From there on, it was bush. It was just crazy. It was a different life. You could buy a 5-acre block of ground in Kingsway Road for £500. So I mean, but mind you, £500 was a lot of money, a lot of money. When you consider that these houses were £3,000 to complete with land. So it was different. But we were there, about 4 years, and the Shire came along and offered us street trees. The two trees in front of our place are still there. One was a bay and the other one was a variegated. Now the variegated one today is quite small, but the other one is a monster. In fact, it was undermining the house with the roots at one stage. So we had to get the Shire come out and chop the roots back. I know if the wife had a way, she was going to dig it out. But they wrote to her and told her that would cost her $20,000 to dig it out.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it was big money. But everything else has just remained the same, you know, over the years. I put up a 4-car garage because I was interested in vintage cars at the time, and I just needed somewhere to store them. But it was the whole area was very, very friendly, very friendly. It was good.
Can you remember any little shops and delis and things that were around the place?
They're still there. That's down on opposite the school. Don't ask me the name of the street. I don't know. But then the big shopping centre, as we called it then, was the Nollamara shopping centre. But I mean, today it's a much bigger shopping centre than what it was when we shopped there. And the only other little shops were down on Wanneroo Road, down next to Sinagra's garage.
And would you just go to the supermarket to get all of your produce, or would you go to markets and things like that as well?
No. Greens I used to bring home because I visited all the market gardens, so didn't have to buy any greens or anything like that. And when I went to Chittering, I'd bring home oranges and lemons and what have. In fact, I brought home an orange tree and a lemon tree the year we moved in, and they're still producing rapidly. In fact, Ant has to throw out so many lemons every year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they're monstrous trees. But I'd bring that home, and all we do is go down and get the ordinary groceries down at Nollamara.
And what facilities in the city of Stirling have you used over the years, or social groups and things like that? How have you stayed connected?
This particular centre, back in '98, I joined a pensioners social club that was operating in this building, and things didn't go the way I thought they should be going. So in 2003, a friend and myself cancelled the old club and created a new one. And we called it the Balga Nollamara Pensioners Social Club. And that was wonderful because the old club had about 30 odd members in it, and it was waning, it was falling to pieces. And once we started the new club, within 2 years we had 100 members, and we had 10 on the waiting list because I just felt 110 was too many to be trying to control, And we had wonderful times. We'd do trips to the country once a month. We'd do a trip to Kalgoorlie, another to Albany. Each year we'd find somewhere to go. And it all culminated with a trip to Adelaide onto the Murray Princess.
Gee whiz.
And I took 28 of the members over there in 2007. And that was absolutely magic. It cost them $2,900 each, but it was worth every penny of it. It was a 2-week trip. Went over by train, did the Murray Princess, spent a couple of nights in Adelaide and then flew back. And it was great. And the people were absolutely wonderful. They loved the trips. And we would do a week away into the country. We'd go to, say, Kalgoorlie a week, Geraldton for a week, down to Bunbury, Busselton. But the other thing with it was we were associated with clubs in Geraldton, clubs in Cal, and they would come to Perth.
Wow.
And we would have, the best we had here one time was, 250 people here for lunch one day. And it was wonderful. Absolutely brilliant. And of course we'd put on a concert for them and what have you. It was good socialising. Everybody got to meet people. It was wonderful.
You must get along if you do big travel trips together, because there's a lot of conversations would happen on the road.
They did. And if somebody wasn't there, serves them right, they got talked about. And I mean, the best I've done apart from that with them is, I think it's about 20 of us went on a cruise around New Zealand. That was back in 2009. And it was a tremendous trip, absolutely tremendous.
What are some of the smaller activities that you do in the club?
Was, well, at the moment, very little.
Why is that?
Because the membership's waned. It's gone down, unfortunately. At the moment they have bingo, they have, they used to have indoor bowls, they had croquet, they had bocce, what do they call it, the ladies with their needles, craft work, and it was really, really full on for them. And that went on for years and years. But see, it's 20 years now since the club was formed, and it really needs a good build-up.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it wants now. So what's going to happen, I don't know.
Why is it important to have groups like the social club that you can engage in a community?
Community spirit. It enlarges your area. It gets all the people meeting one another. It gets people out of their houses. You know, you get a single mum or a woman who's lost her husband and the family's all grown up and she's sitting at home wondering, what can I do? Put her into a club and she's got a whole lifetime ahead of her. And they really do benefit from it.
Do you have any stories of a particular moment where you thought, gee, this is what this club is all about? And
Yes, we had our very first nonagerian. This particular lady lived in a Homes West unit and she was turning 90, so I thought, right. She was always brought here by one of the other members, so I got the other member to not pick her up early, and I got on to her daughter and her son, found a lady who did her nurse's training with her back in the teens, found a young lad, well, he wasn't young then, but he was a young lad when he did his apprenticeship with them, and we did up This Is Your Life. And it went for about an hour. And what actually happened is she arrived here and she said, oh, they've moved my chair. Oh, because we changed the tables around and we just said, well, sorry, Phil, you're sitting up the back. So we took her up and sat her on this chair like a throne, and we had a screen across, and the first one we brought out was her sister, and then so it went on from there. And she was absolutely in tears. I had a lass videoing it for me, and she had to put the camera down to wipe the tears off her face. It was really, really something. It was a moment to live for. And of course, that was it was a day and a half for her. I mean, she's naturally gone now, but yeah, that was a wonderful event. Wonderful event.
Yeah.
But you know, when we had the country clubs coming here, they would get up and they would do things, and one lass used to bring her ukulele, and she'd get up here and play the uke and dance around, and all of this mixing together is so wonderful for them. And of course, when we went to Geraldton or one of the other clubs, the same thing happened there. You know, when we were in Geraldton on the last trip, because we've done a couple of trips up there, while we did a tour around up to Mullawa and back, their club went down to Dongara and set up a big luncheon ready for us to come back to. Nice. You know, and this is the way they used to work in together, and it was good. It was really good. Yes, so the area has really gone ahead since I first came here, in a big way.
Yeah, wonderful. That's just about it. All we have
That's about
time
it.
for.
That's it.
Beautiful
Good.
stories.
Good.
Thanks,
Good.
Reg.
No problem. That's a
wonderful.
pleasure.